Today we finally get to finish our muffler restoration project and get it installed. This was a long time coming because some of the parts got held up on the west coast on who knows where, the freighter from nowhere. And we finally got all our parts, and we finally got a day that was appropriate for doing this work, and we got it done. Now it's been a little bit of a delay. We had a delay getting the last part for the FZR muffler. We split up the restoration of the muffler into 3 parts just to make it convenient and watchable. But today we're going to finish the job. The clamp came in the mail, and we're going to do the install and hopefully maybe even get a test run. But we never know. A job like this, it always starts off and there's always something. But maybe today will be our lucky day. So just to recap, so far this year we've done steel brake lines, new rotors on the GS. That was one of our top priorities. We got the little fly screen installed on the MT-09, and that worked out just perfectly. We winterized and actually got several rides on the RD already. So we're moving right along on our priority list of winter projects. Now for people new to the channel, we're going to be doing a lot of work on the MT-09, including paint work over the winter. But today, we want to finish up that FZR project, and sadly it took three videos to get it done. That assumes we're going to get it done today. I guess we're going to find out. But as always, the first thing I always have to do in my shop before we start working, become a parking lot attendant and move the bikes around, get them into a position where I can work on them conveniently. And that's always a little bit more involved than you think it is. Now we have several other mufflers for the FZR and for several of the bikes. We got a whole drawer of them here. So what's happened in the last year or two is we've gone from riding, from riding in a park environment where noise didn't really matter, to riding in the area where I ride now where there's a lot of houses and you have to really be stealth. And what I've done is convert most of the bikes over to a quieter muffler. Now we had several other mufflers on this over the years with various results, and it always ran really good with the Norton muffler, but boy, it was loud. At full throttle, that's a killer. So I took the muffler that originally came with the bike. It's a Yoshimura, if I got it right, I hope I do. And I did a complete repolish, filled up the fiberglass, cleaned it up a lot, and we're ready. Actually today, if all goes well, we'll be able to ride the bike the next work session. So on our work table, these are future projects that we're going to work on, but this is the one we're going to work on today. We even got some new springs, and this is the thing we had to wait for. The last piece that came from China. Well, who knows where it came from. It took about a month to get here. It's always interesting to me when you get these things from over, well, who knows where it really came from. This is now the clamp, and it's not, of course it's a universal clamp, but the thing is, when I took this apart the first time, this is the part, the clamp is only part of it, and we'll clean that up a little bit before we install it, once we know it fits. This is the part, this is heat-proof rubber, and what will happen if you just install this up against the aluminum, of course it's going to chafe it and scratch it and everything. So the first thing I want to do is peel off all this backing, run over to the buffing wheel and clean this up just enough. And by the way, it also has, and again, I don't even know who made this. Well, they give you the bolt with it too. When I had given this muffler to Turbo Steve, I don't know if he used it or not, it's irrelevant, but what happened is he had the clamp, but we couldn't find the rubber, so I just ordered the whole thing new, and hopefully this is going to be a close fit. If not, I'm going to be on my way over to Turbo Steve's. The rubber goes in between, but the first step on this, and a lot of people would just go install this, I want to clean it up. Now keep in mind, this is a universal clamp. It's not made for the FZR. It's not made for the exact diameter. It required a little bit of tweaking, nothing we can't handle in the shop. But that rubber is the important part of this operation. Now, relatively straightforward, so I put this part of it in fast forward. Cleaning up, deburring it, polishing off the edges, trying to make it just a little bit nicer than it is when it came from the factory. Pretty simple. I needed to tweak the part, bend one end in a little bit, and then hacksaw the extra piece off. Because it's malleable steel, relatively easy to do that. just a quick hacksaw job, and then back to the deburring operation. Put it on a grinder, clean it all up, get it so there's no razor edges on it, and then the final thing, back to the buffing wheel, where we want to get it as clean as possible. Here I'm still deburring it. I don't want to have any part of it that looks like it's anything less than the best I can make it, because this bike is one of my pride and joys. This is a 900-hour restoration. Now, because we shortened the clamp, we're going to have to shorten the rubber, of course, also. And then I want to do a dry fit before we go out to the garage and get this bolted up. Anytime you have a universal clamp like this, you know it's going to require a little tweaking, that's for sure. Okay, after a little tweaking, I think we're ready to go out to the garage and get this installed. So the next step is to just relieve that bolt, release the clamp, and get the old muffler off. Now, because I've had this apart and changed and modified so many times, it's a pretty straightforward job. And it's always amazing to me how different a bike is. You make it louder or quieter, or if it takes the throttle nice, or it doesn't take the throttle well at all. You can change a lot of stuff just by changing a muffler. Relatively straightforward, not a real complicated job. Now, these Norton original mufflers that I had for the 750 and for the FCR 1000, they were from Dime Cycle, and they stood the test of time, but they are loud. And we'll just keep that in inventory next time we want to evil twin something out, or if we want to make the bike louder. Now, I also have an adapter in here, an adapter clamp. I need to get this off and clean this up a little bit, and we are good to go. Now, because we've already had this on the motorcycle already, we know it runs, it's definitely quieter than a Norton. This is a relatively straightforward job, but I still want to be careful I don't scratch anything or beat anything up. This is going to line up just perfectly. Let's see, but I got to move that back, so let's do this. I want to get this seated as far up as it should go. It's got to line up with the springs, have to line up. I'm not so sure those springs are going to be long enough. I may have to get other springs, but I do have some. And that's going to line up. Now, see, this muffler, when I buffed it, it had a scar on it. Well, the whole thing here is I wanted the scar to line up with the rubber clamp, so it covered up the scar. And we'll see if we can make that happen. I think it's going to be fine. So far, the biggest deal in the whole thing was tweaking that clamp. I just had to replace the washer with one that's a little bit different in diameter to get this to really work perfectly, in fact. Maybe it's my lucky day. You never can tell. Boy, those springs were tenacious to get on. Holy mackerel. Can't believe it. I'm sure they're not exactly the right springs. I should have springs. That's... what are you going to do? Sometimes you got to go to war with the spring you have. Yeah, that looks like it worked out. I don't know how much better than that it could have been. It's a relatively straightforward job. Now, one of the last things is the clamp under here. I want to make sure it's tight. Okay. All right, it's all buttoned up now, and I think that, the way that played out, that's just about as good as it's going to get. Now, whenever I have some of the bikes out in the driveway, I like to do a little comparison. I think here's the perfect example of 1991 bike, and I did want to have a bike from the 90s in my collection, of course. And here's a bike, ABS, no ABS. Traction control, no traction control. Quick shifter, no quick shifter. And the ride modes, no ride modes. But the bottom line is this bike is still a load of laughs to ride. I think that's going to be a lot better when we go through these populated areas, that's for sure. Much better than the Norton. So this day ended on a nice positive note. It sounded great. The only issue in the whole job was tweaking that universal clamp to be exactly the diameter of the Yoshimura. But of course you could probably get the Yoshimura clamp too for whatever, if you didn't want to do that tweaking. We are ready for a test ride, but as you can probably figure out, it's already way too late in the day to go out. And when he comes to his time in the rotation, I'll be excited to go for a ride. Anyway, these are the kind of jobs that sometimes you think everything's going to be just 2 bolts and it's done. Well, you got to see today how to clamp. And when you buy these inexpensive parts from China, you usually have to polish them and deburr them and whatever, but basically they're all usable, and they are inexpensive relative to buying the real genuine parts, so you figure how much money you have to spend anyway. So this day, now that it's behind us, I can look back and say, well, what should have happened is, in the very beginning, I should have gotten all these parts within a couple of days. Because I got them in weeks apart, it made me split this video up into 3 parts, but the other 2 parts are still out on the channel. They're only about a month back, and you can type my name in quotation marks and then FCR Muffler Restoration, and they'll come up. And I think it's an interesting thing if you have an older muffler, because a lot of people just go buy a new muffler. Well, there's nothing wrong with that. It's expensive, and I don't know what these mufflers cost now, but I know restoring an older part like we did here with the fiberglass packing and the new bracket and whatnot, there's just something about it. We have a 91 bike and probably an appropriate age appropriate muffler for it, and it's kind of a free bonus. And to be honest, I had my heart and soul into this bike for a whole year, 900 hours of restoration, and every time I ride it and think about all of the work I put into this, brand new forks, painting the wheels, new discs, the various mufflers we've tried, the tuning things we've tried. I got 3 full years of riding it as a track bike before I restored it. And then the first day I rode it after the 900-hour restoration, I crashed it. So there's a lot of memories there. I'm not sure I want to remember every one of them. But anyway, we do try to work in the shop, go for our rides, share the interest that we have, the passion we have for motorcycling, try to evil twin out the bikes. We do try to post up a video almost every day, and we do really enjoy the whole passion for all of motorcycling for the last 60 years that I've been involved in it. So thanks so much for watching, and hopefully we'll see you tomorrow.